Hi, I am Zoe, star with Paranormal Extraction, and welcome to my show. Today we have the modern introduction to vampires with Mark Ollie. Now, Mark Ollie is really famous in the UK. Yay, D. So I wanted to tell you guys, I am so excited about this. Now, I used to do paranormal work, as you guys all know, but Paranormal Extraction, we call ourselves supernatural light workers because we are not investigators. Zoe and Crystal, I'm Zoe, of course you know that, and my cohort in crime, I don't know if I should say that, is Crystal. And we are now working on some new and exciting and extraordinary cases, including the true story of Melody's entity attachment. So we're going to be going into that pretty soon as well, and we've got some wonderful things coming up, and so I just want to let you guys know that too, okay? All right, so we're going to go talk to Mark and interview him on the vampire. I don't have my cape on today. I just do, you know what, I just love having fun on here, you know, and I love having fun with you. You're so much fun. You know, the guys I had on last week were so much fun, you know, and I know that you and I have, you know, we have this little type of bond where you're my mentor type guy.
Oh,
and,
I wouldn't say that.
You know, so, you know.
I can't accept responsibility for that, dearie me. What an awesome thing to say.
Everything you say is true. Anyways, okay, so Mark, I know that you have a ton of books out. So, you know, why don't you just kind of give a quick bio so people know and know where to go to buy your books and all of that, and then we'll get into the vampire stories.
Okay, start with the advert then. Dead easy. Anybody wants to get anything that's written by me, you just put my name into Amazon. Everything is on Amazon. You literally click, pay, a few days later, comes whizzing through your door if you buy it in hard copy. But it's also on there as an audio book, it's on there as a download, and the books you're looking for, I've done one on Robin Hood, spelled ROBYNHOODE. So if you want to go after the life and times of the real Robin Hood, try and get the spelling right. There's one called Revealing the Green Man. There's one called The Disappearing Ninth Legion. There's Crystal Skulls and Human Heads. And hopefully by the end of the year, you'll have the Polychronicon of Merlin, Joseph and Arthur, which is the big King Arthur book that's on its way. But all of that's available from Amazon. If you want to try and find me and get in contact with me, again, type my name into the search engine for Facebook. And you can bash away on Facebook and get me by messaging me on Messenger. So you'll get to see what I'm up to, and if I'm friends with you, I get to see what you're up to, which sounds like a fair swap.
Yeah,
so,
yes. But you know what, now, I mean, as far as your bio, okay, you're an archaeologist. I mean, we're not just talking to someone who doesn't know what they're talking about, okay?
No, that leads nicely into the subject for tonight. No, I've always sort of been digging, been down holes since I was a child. I started when I was about 8 years old because my dad was a volunteer digger in the 1960s and 1970s. So literally archaeology is in the blood, you know, it's part of my genetics. I trained as a teenager under Liverpool University. I was working on sites all over Britain into the 1980s. Then I got a record deal, disappeared off into the music business. That's another story. Came back in the 1990s, writing books about regional history. So if you want to go and find those, Celtic Warrington and Other Mysteries, books 1, 2 and 3, they're out there somewhere. I came back, I got a TV series. I had my own archaeology unit, which ran for 12 years. We had a fantastic reputation for superb archaeology. We always hit the target. And at the same time as all of this, as I'm doing all of this, I have a very strong interest in histories, mysteries and discoveries, you know, spirituality, the weirder side of things, supernatural, flying saucers and vampires. There you go, there's your introduction. I was always a big fan of the Hammer horror movies, you know, the kind of the scary, you know, all that sort of stuff. So I've got my own vampire character. I used to wander around in the 90s and early 2000s as.
Which we're gonna get into.
Oh dear, yeah, we can do.
So
to boldly go where the hand of man has never set foot.
okay.
Go on.
Well, my favorite subject is, and it's like someone said to me, "You're doing another video on vampires," and well, of course, you're the number one guy to go to. This was just some guy's experience, and then I talked about my experience. So if you wanted to watch that, just go to YouTube, and you'll see the vampire video and that. But I'm talking to the man today, okay, that knows what he's talking about. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the history of vampirism?
Okay, it's a lot older than people think. The basic origins of it, I suppose, are Babylonian and biblical. So you're around about 2000 BC. You're looking at goddesses like Lilith, who crosses over. She's Babylonian, but she's also Jewish. She's the rejected wife of Adam, who turns evil and becomes serpentile. And in the Jewish legend, she's the one that beguiles Eve to kind of mess it all up, for which she's banished into the desert. But she's not very nice. She, eats children for breakfast. She, causes chaos, creates all kinds of mayhem. And that belief kind of persisted right through into medieval times. But then you've got all the biblical beliefs, about life and death, life after death, resurrection. You've got things to do with the blood, the fact that the life is in the blood. And a lot of other sort of societies had very similar beliefs. So the Saxons had it, the Celts had it, the Romans had it. Wherever you go, you will find this idea, a sort of a combination, if you like, that some people don't die. No matter how hard you try to get rid of them, they just keep coming back. And that's this idea of the undead. And then that's combined with the idea that these spirit beings, which are also able to manifest physically, it's combined with the idea that they need something to keep them going. And that can be all kinds of things. They can steal your soul, they can steal your body, they can steal your blood, steal the lifeblood, steal your spirit. And nowadays we even have psychic vampires. Somebody walks into the room and everyone goes,
Yeah, everything.
And these people just suck the life out of you. So
everything you're talking about, I know about except for the very beginning. So yeah. So keep going.
Well, modern day vampire followers tend to regard Lilith as their goddess, if you like. She's the origins of that thread, if you like. But the oldest one I've got actually is a chieftain called Abartact, and he comes from Ireland. And they did all kinds of things to this guy in the 4th and 5th century. So it's actually a Celtic tale, still over 1600 years old. And they did all sorts of things to this guy to try and stop him from coming back because he was so evil. They buried him upside down. They scattered thorns all around his grave. So he had to pick them up before he could move on. They nailed a stake through his heart. They did all the classic vampire stuff.
Wow.
But who knew that story existed, over 1,500 years ago in Ireland? It's got an Irish origin. And I very strongly suspect that Bram Stoker knew the details of that particular legend, because the details, they're too coincidental with the later tales of Dracula. It's clearly something that he will have run across at some point in his lifetime to produce what we've got now. But who knew all that time ago? Most people take vampires back to Vlad the Impaler, whose dad was actually the Dracula.
That's really the only thing they ever talk about.
Yeah, that's pretty much everything they focus on. I mean, they always talk about him, but they forget to talk about things like Elizabeth Bathory, for example. She was around about the same time in the 1500s. And she used to sacrifice people, especially virgins, drain the blood out and bathe in the blood in order to keep young. And when they raided her castle, I think there was 680 bodies all hacked up in various states. And she had this massive torture chamber in the basement. So they disliked her so much, they actually walled her up alive and fed her through a slot till she died. But I mean, that's another inspiration for a lot of what we see in the Hammer movies and the Dracula movies and, you know, the vampire stories. She was a female version, if you like, of Vlad the Impaler. So you'd sort of go back, but that's only going back to the 1500s, you know. It's been around 1,000 years before that, you know, and then it goes back even further. They've been sort of nailing people into coffins with iron spikes, and
right.
you know, farming implements are used to pin them down, you know, or weighted down with rocks, or buried vertically, or face down, or, you know, they've been doing that for a tremendously long amount of time.
Well, they've also put cages.
Yeah. I mean,
cages.
The Romans had a belt in one, because if they didn't want you to wander around, this is 2,000 years ago, they'd chop your head off and put your head between your knees, or put it at your waist, because they thought, well, if the head's moved, if it's gone somewhere else, it won't come back and reconnect, and these people won't come back. So really nasty criminals and gladiators, even, people that were involved in death and violence, where there was the slightest chance they were going to come back, they would rearrange the body parts and move the head down to the lower part, the feet, the knees, or the waist, to keep it away. Or in some cases, even just leave chains on. They just chain these people up with iron, because iron seems to, keep these evil spirits at bay. So it's been going on a long time. You know, we've got 2,000 years of archaeology to back up vampires or something extremely similar. Yeah.
You said tobacco vampires?
No, to back up the existence, support the existence of them.
Okay, with all of this information, which, you know, I mean, I wanted to interject here, interject there, interject here, but, you know, as an interviewer, I didn't feel it necessary to interject, because what you said was absolutely fantastic. And, you know, I believe that no one really knows anything about this, okay? They just think about the vampires. And so I think what you said was absolutely fantastic. So moving on from there, okay, is it your belief that they exist?
Well, it's one of those things where if you decide, let's say I was to take a position and say they don't exist, then what I'm obviously doing there is going against possibly as much as, you know, 3, 4, 5,000 years of human history, where people for centuries have believed that they do exist.
Right.
So the evidence, the weight of evidence is, yes, something of that nature definitely exists or existed for it all to develop in the first place. It has an origin, you know. Some people think it might be anemia that makes you, you know, sensitive to sunlight, or albino conditions that do the same. You know, it could be some kind of blood disorder, or it could actually be that these people, you know, viewed themselves as vampires and required, you know, blood in order to live. I suppose, if I was to nail my colours to the mast, I'd say, something's definitely going on.
Okay,
you know.
I thought this was really funny, because I dug up a little history. Someone asked me, well, why is it that they can see their images in mirrors? Well, hello, why don't you tell us, I know you know about this, and how they made mirrors, okay, and they don't make those mirrors like that anymore. Why that is, okay?
Well, if you go back to, let's say we go back to the days when Bram Stoker's writing Dracula, so you're back in the 19th century, so you're already 200 years ago, and the information he's basing things on maybe 250 years ago. The development of photography and the development of modern day mirrors began around about 1840, 1850, 1860. And what they would do, the reflective surface is made from silver. It's made from a liquid form of silver called colloidal silver. Now, right throughout history, they believe that silver, you know, the metal of the moon, has this magical power to repel evil. You know, it's got this quality, and to some extent it does. I mean, it kills germs. You know, if you make medical implements out of it, people improve and they survive operations and things if the tools are made of silver. So it's antibacterial, we know that, but it produced this legend that it repels death and it repels evil. So as long as we were making mirrors and we were making, you know, photographic plates, with colloidal silver,
Right.
then it makes perfect sense that you wouldn't be able to see the reflection of something evil like a vampire in that. It would repel them. Then we come into the centuries since then.
Yes.
Now, of course, we don't use silver. We've got other methods of producing mirrors. Exactly. So the mirrors we've got now, when you see, somebody out of Twilight walking past a mirror, combing his hair, that's perfectly acceptable. Because there's no colloidal silver in there anymore. There's some overlap as well with werewolves and vampires. Like you shoot a werewolf with a silver bullet. It's this same principle of holiness. You could certainly give a vampire a run for his money if you had silver bullets, because the same thing would apply. But it would have to be real silver. That's the kicker.
Right. So, okay, now saying that, is that the way you kill them?
No, not permanently anyway. It's from what I've done in research, it's extremely difficult to kill a vampire because very often when they decompose, whatever you kill them with just falls out of the body. So bullets would do that. Would just drop out, which is where you get this idea of staking them in. So, one particularly brutal way of doing it was to nail the body down through all the joints with big iron spikes. So you'd go through the ankles, the knees, the pelvis, the shoulders, the elbows, the hands. You'd literally nail them into the grave so they couldn't get out. Apparently they're a bit OCD vampires as well, because if you empty a huge bag of rice around the grave, or seeds of any kind, or you empty thorns, which is what the Irish did, the vampire has to pick them all up before it can progress. Well, if there's enough of it, it can't get out the grave before the sun comes up. So, ta-da, you've solved the problem. So there are many and various different ways of doing it. Sunlight's the obvious one. Unless, of course, you happen to be the producer of Twilight, in which case they just, glimmer. They just kind of glow. Well, at least they do in the first movie. They forgot to do it in the subsequent ones. That was the only series of movies where, for 3 entire movies, nothing happened.
What movies are you talking about?
Twilight. The Twilight Saga. Have you ever watched Twilight? You must have watched Twilight, surely.
I read the book, and when it was getting to the last book, it was just getting too out of control. And
you got two teenagers looking at each other smoulderingly for an entire movie, and then the number of teenagers increase, and they all look at each other smoulderingly until you get this big bust up at the end of the third movie, the battle, which incidentally probably wasn't in the books, not the way they did it, as far as I know. And then boom, that's it. So they could have done the whole of Twilight in about 15 minutes, instead of punishing us with goodness knows how many hours of movies. But they get a couple of things right in there. There's a great shot of I can't remember his name now, but the main male vampire is in this class, and he's kind of ogling smoulderingly across this classroom. And behind him is a stuffed owl with its wings outstretched. Now, most people, that will have just gone straight over their heads. But an owl is the original symbol of the vampire. It's not the bat. The bat's much later.
That's
the
weird.
It is. Well, it's the bird of Lilith. So for thousands of years, the symbol of a vampire has been an owl, because it flies silently at night and it strikes its prey without warning. So it was a perfect symbol. But it's only in recent times we've ended up with bats. They've become the thing now, which is a jolly shame, really, because they're lovely little cute furry things with wings. Why pick on a bat? It's gorgeous. What a lovely animal. I was wanting a fruit bat. I wanted a fruit bat as a pet, but apparently they stink. If you keep one sort of indoors or whatever, it smells awful. So.
Okay, and they have the ones that are 6 feet long. I think they come
from
Australia, right? They come from Australia. Yeah, they have. But I wanted to say my favorite show is The Vampire Diaries, and then it goes into the originals. The originals, those I am just absolutely so addicted to. But now I'm into conspiracy theories. I'm gonna bring up a couple things about that. Not conspiracy theories. I'm gonna stay on vampires, and then we can possibly go into that. But now I have had my own experience as being a vampire. Okay.
Yeah.
And what I did. Okay. Now I'm not truly a real vampire. Okay. I was on the dark side, and if you guys don't know about this stuff, you can go on the other interview with Alan Monticello and see. Just scroll down. You see the vampire, and then you can watch that. But so I was heavily involved in that movement. Now, in that movement, there was nothing spoken of what you just spoke of. Okay, I mean nothing. I mean, there was nothing spoke about it. It was just vampirism. So I did participate in that. I know that you also were kind of part of that movement too when we were both crazy and young. Is that
Yeah. I mean, I said earlier on, I was an enormous fan of the Christopher Lee Hammer horror type, Dracula and all that. When I was younger, I was thinner and I had masses of black hair, so I could really pull it off. I'm the guy that answers the door at Halloween wearing a big long black cloak, and goes hello, try and scare the kids off. I'm kind of that guy, or I was. Now I'm like the guy with the red suit, but less said about that the better. But I lost a couple of teeth at the front here as well because all my teeth didn't form. So I also had a dentist who was a bit kind of radical, he's covered in tattoos, and he was like, so I suggested, well, instead of just, giving me like false teeth, why don't we ever go and see if we can do something with fangs? And he was like, oh, I've been waiting all my career for someone to ask me to do that. Yeah, of course, I'll have a go. I'll tell you, I'll do it for nothing. You can have a go and see what happens. So I had this fantastic set of vampire teeth I used to wear. I used to, wear it for cosplay. I mean, I got involved in a lot of cosplay stuff. So it's dead funny because they used to have like fairy balls and all this nonsense. So I'd go as a fairy-eating vampire because the only costume I had was vampire. So I really kind of got into that image, in a big way, and it was just loads of fun. It was so much fun you wouldn't believe it. I picked a couple of hitchhikers up one night as well. This lad and his girlfriend. And when they got in the car, I was a bit puzzled because she got in the front seat and it was late at night. I mean, back in the day you could do that, and I was thinking that was a bit weird. Why didn't he get in the front seat and she get in the back? So we're driving along, minding her own business. Anyway, of course, she smiles and she's got this big set of fangs in and all that. Obviously, they do it all the time, I wasn't freaked out. I was like, oh, fantastic, where do you get those done, You give me the name of your dentist, I'll see if I can get a bigger set made, So that's kind of where I was at, I just used to think it was fantastic. And knowing all the history, like you say, I mean, a lot of people get into vampires because it's the modern thing to do, it's the movies like Blade and stuff like that, where you've got all the different houses of vampires represented, and they did a bit of research for that, so there's a lot of good links in that. You've got loads of these movies like that, and people sort of do think, well, there's got to be something in this, But anyway, as an archaeologist, obviously, I've got the background, I've got the history in that, I've dug a couple of these guys up that are nailed into the coffins.
Okay, so now first of all, I want to say one thing. They do have dentists now that they specialize in doing vampire teeth. Okay, the other thing, oh shoot, I forgot. I can't believe I forgot because you go so fast, it's like ding, 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 ding. And normally I butt in right when I want to, and then drag you back to the normal thing. But anyways, so do you think or believe that vampires actually have those type of teeth? The real ones.
Well, there's a definition now. There's quite a fixed definition for what a real vampire is. Since we've had the development of societies, we've had the development of the different houses. You've got a chap in the States who basically claims to be in charge of them all over the world. He's got a house of his own. Okay,
we're gonna talk about that. Keep going. I had to interject.
They've brought out this definition now where they've got the idea of sanguine vampires, which are ones that actually consume either their own or somebody else's bodily fluids, and then non-sanguine, which are ones that don't. They just don't drink blood. So you've either got blood drinking or non-blood drinking vampires. That's what they are. That's the definition, really.
Okay, so there's some that have the teeth, and there's some that don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and the ones that don't, what do? Drink it out of a glass?
Hey, it's education now. I lost the teeth anyway, so I mean, if I hadn't lost the teeth, I probably wouldn't have bothered. But because I did, it was so much fun to do that. Some people, get horns implanted. Some people get covered in tats.
Oh my God! People are getting disfigured. They're making
all sorts of stuff. So
disfigured.
I like the idea of teeth because I could put them in and take them out.
Yeah.
Which is
what's going on over there? You all right?
Kind of.
Okay. Because he's feeling a different way, so he's over there going, making kind of some movements and stuff. And you know me, I don't care what's going on. Let's let the dogs bark, throw balls at the dogs. Let's do
trying a new thing, and I hit the power button, so this is part 2 right now.
Oh, so we're adding part 2 into it because you accidentally turned the power down.
And adjusting my focus, yes.
Okay, so guys, this is the only time that they're going to put part 2 into it because we don't ever edit. So just so you know, it might kind of come out a little weird. But that's because we're going to end up getting a boom mic and doing all this stuff that the producer told us to do. And Mark is in agreement with this.
And this
sounds like an improvement.
Yeah, it works.
So we're trying new stuff, so bear with us, okay? So we're on that subject. What I want to go into next, because, what you've said is so mind-boggling and so overwhelming that it's really hard for me to interview you because of your history and what I know, okay? Now, as a child, I was always interested in witches and vampires, okay? So this comes from like 8 years old. I was into this stuff, okay? So I got involved in a movement, okay, of underground, that's what I call them, underground vampire places that you go to.
Yeah.
Now, I asked you about this, and you confirmed this. So can you talk a little bit? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I obviously I was interested as a child as well.
I mean, come on,
1970s, we had Hammer Horror over here. We got Hammer years before it made it to the States.
I should live next door to you, okay?
We just were on different continents, but we kind of fell out the same mold. So, so I was interested in that as well. But at that time, in the 70s and 80s, there wasn't any kind of constructed movement. It didn't really exist.
Yeah.
But then when I started doing television, we did a program on Manchester back in 2008. And in Manchester, I bumped into a couple of guys, and they said, "Oh, do you want to come and do a talk for us? Do you do anything that's any good for Halloween?" And I said, "Oh, well, what kind of group are you?" So, "No, it's the Manchester Vampire Guild." So I said, "Oh, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do the history of vampires. Why not? I've been dying to do that, So I did it for the Manchester Vampire Guild. I did it for a couple of Gothic groups that are there as well. And they all have different members, but obviously they've all got their different opinions on vampires. And the Manchester Vampire Guild at that time, they'd actually made contact over the internet with the chap in America, whose name eludes me. But anyway, they'd got approval to start a group in Manchester. So it was very much a case of the groups that you probably used to know that were over there in the States.
Yeah.
We've got some of them here now, but it wasn't always like that.
Okay, but there was a famous guy who was in charge and then brought that to the U.S.
I can't remember his name.
Last time we knew his name, and I actually have his name written down. Hello. Anyways, I might put that in the comments so people know who did this. So if you want to do any research yourself to believe what we're talking about, you actually will have some facts.
Well, I know if you just do a search, if you just put in vampire groups or vampire guilds, as they're known as the guilds, you will get, or houses. That's the other thing they use, vampire houses. If you use any of those terms, you will start to come up with, quite a healthy thread now on the internet. I know it's all out there.
Yeah. So okay, from my experience, these places are, well, I mean, they're really cool. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really cool, but now it's kind of like it's not easy to get in. Okay, you can't just be Joe Smo who wants to be a vampire and dress up like one and go in. You kind of need to be invited, you know?
Yeah. If you know someone that's already in there, that's in one of these groups, then it's a lot easier, hell of a lot easier. I actually started before I met the Manchester lot, because many years ago, 30 odd years ago, I bumped into a lass that wanted a tattoo designing, and I do graphics. And she said, I want one for a vampire guild. So I'm like, oh, okay, you want a guild symbol. So I designed one for her, and that was the first encounter I ever had with anybody. But it's just a case of meeting these people, because I hung out in rock clubs and goth clubs, and I was a DJ and I was in the music business. I just ran across these people by accident, but they're definitely out there.
Okay, so you never actually went into one of the private guilds. I always. Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did you think?
Well, the one in Manchester was just in its infancy. It was just starting out, so it was more a case of them organising things for like-minded people. So, for example, they'd go ghost bust Manchester Cemetery, which is enormous, but they'd go and do it on Halloween, or they'd go and do it on a full moon, or they'd make it as scary as they could. They had a big thing about watching vampire movies from the past, and about the history of vampires, and the whole gothic thing, the whole gothic movement.
Right.
When I did my television show, my entire image for television was gothic. I had a massive black coat, big black New Rock boots, a black hat, So it kind of sat really well with them as a community. They were really cheering the whole programme on, At last we've got somebody gothic on television, Never happens on terrestrial TV over here.
And I prefer, like, the outfit I wore today, and for the last interview I did, which you'll see right under Mark Ollie's today. I wore my cape that I had custom made in Salem, for the vampire thing. So it's kind of interesting. I always like to dress kind of the part, But the only clothes I have are like kind of what I have on today, or this is how I dress, So this woman said, "This isn't a very good look for you."
Blue.
And I was like, you should start wearing blue.
And don't squeeze it so.
So I was like,
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what ITV Granada said to me when I started wearing black. They said that's a brilliant idea, because most people tend to watch what we do on small devices or small television screens. So if you want to draw their attention, if you want to get their attention as a presenter, the thing that they can see most is black. So if you're dressed in black, they can see you quite clearly, and the eye's drawn to the object that's on the screen that's black. And no other colour does that,
I mean, that's why this right now is like kind of my favorite show, and the last one, and the vampire. I wore my cape for the last one. I thought, let's not wear a cape for this one, but I'm really into that. But however, I've had some people on that, let's just say, are metaphysical. I'm not going to come on wearing this kind of outfit. So I kind of go around what the discussion. I wear an outfit that kind of goes with what I'm going to talk about.
Absolutely.
But kind of now how I feel is with my show is I really don't care.
Hey, it's your show, it's your bat, your ball, your game, it's your show. At the end of the day, that's what will make the show work and make it happen. It's you. It's an extension of you.
I know. I know.
You don't change that. Don't go changing any of that.
And Mark, if you were to look in my closet, the only thing that I own is black or white.
Okay, mine's full of skeletons. Go on, mine.
Okay.
not because I've done anything wrong. It's because I'm an archaeologist and I collect those kind of things. No, I'm only joking.
Yeah.
I'm only joking.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
No, you can imagine that. A gothic vampire archaeologist. What's he keep in his closet? It's got to be, hasn't it? It's got to be skeletons.
Okay, so you were down there. Okay, this is back in the '80s and stuff, and they were doing the movies, and they were doing all this different stuff. Now, were you ever in a movement after that to see the change of what they've gone into?
Yeah, something did happen. When you went, were you ever in a movie? I thought you were going to say movie.
Oh,
because
okay.
I did actually do a movie once.
So tell us about that.
Well, it's called Molly Crows. It's about a witch from the Midlands, and we did this proper full-blown 2-hour movie, with a great cast. I did a lot of the costuming for it because they wanted things from the 1600s. So obviously I could do that. I could get them all the right gear and all that. But I played a witch hunter, a witch finder. So I'm going through this dead creepy derelict house with this massive gun, which won't do anything anyway. If this witch wants to eat me alive, she'll eat me alive. And then I'm going off to the grave as well to nail her in a grave at one point. I'm carrying burning torches, It's proper Hammer horror stuff, So I went off and did that. So I went sort of from doing vampires, I went off to do that movie, and that crossed over then into the witchcraft thing and all that. And then it just got darker and darker, there's more black costumes, I even got into pirates as well. I ended up with this black costume pirate gear with a black hat and everything, so because we kind of took the TV image and stretched it, but it was so much fun doing a movie, so much fun, it was a witch, not a vampire, but she does come back from the dead, and it's a proper scary bit, that. So,
right. So okay, so have you been in any? Did you see? I'm going to ask you again. Any change from then till now? Because now I know you're into a totally different thing. This was kind of like something you were into for a while, okay? And a lot that you know about. Now, my experiences have been what's going on now.
Yeah, I think things changed. Yes, I was 1960s, 70s. I was into it as a child. I grew up with it in the 80s.
The lawn guys out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went into the 1990s, and then as we got into the 2000s, I started doing television. So in many ways, it got more serious because I started meeting the real deal. I'd done movies, I'd met real goths, I'd met real vampires. So by about sort of 2010, which is not all that long ago, 2011, 2012.
Right.
I actually I've got really good friends, in those groups still to this day who I know. But then the only thing then that really changed is that I've switched to sort of writing books. But I still do vampires as part of the options for the speaking circuit. So when I go out doing talks and what have you, one of those talks is vampires, which I'm hoping very soon to have online. So there will be a source, there will be a place that you can go where you can find all my talks online. But we're just in the process of making that happen now. So things have changed, and that tells you how they've changed. They've gone from, movies as a hobby, and it's gone into television, and making movies, and then it's gone further than that. Now it's more like online, it's internet, it's information, it's, that kind of thing.
The biggest thing that I've found is these people that are, which I am too, is Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Absolutely.
People want, are so in love with this and follow it and crazed about, Bram Stoker's Dracula, which actually I'm part of a group, I'm part of one of the groups on Facebook, as well as another vampire group. But when I went in, Mark, I had already been practicing it, and there's some things that I don't want to say, of course, because it's pretty bad, okay? But I was really dark then anyways, and so, when we were invited to our first place, we got invited in New Orleans by this guy just kind of showing up. And we were both dressed very goth and the teeth or whatever you want to call them at that time. And he just kind of appeared out of nowhere, and said, I'm going to give you this invitation. And it wasn't Halloween, okay? It wasn't any of that stuff. So we got the invitation, and of course we're gonna go. You know, we're gonna go. We were into it because at that time I was really into voodoo. Plus, I knew a famous voodoo lady in New Orleans, and that's why I went. You know, and damn, I wish I knew her name right now. I'm kind of like you. I can't believe I forgot her name. But
it's just it's not the interview for name dropping tonight.
Yeah,
it's just
obviously
not happening.
not.
Yeah, it's just not happening.
But anyways, so when we got invited to this, it was really weird. It was like a stairway that only one person could get down, and if you went down it, you had to like sidewalk, you know, to get up there. And the stairs were like straight up, you know. So you had all these people like kind of standing outside and trying, you know, and you're shoulder to shoulder. I mean, you cannot move. So we're both like looking at each other. I'm already really into it. So we're shoulder to shoulder, and the air was, you couldn't really breathe. And so, and the people, because I am an empath and clairsendent and clairvoyant and all that I was passing, I was getting like all of this bombardment, especially vampire, you know, the psychic vampires that come in and you know, take your energy or whatever. Okay, so we got up there and there was this bar, and it was, you know, it was so packed up there, and there was so much real stuff going on that we circled the bar and could barely move in between. And I was seeing all this stuff, you know, and I'm going, what the hell is this? I didn't have any space to like stand back and to really check it out. But there was some wild shit going on, man. And so my husband at that time, we won't talk about him. Anyways, we decided, because we couldn't breathe. There was no windows. There was no air. And I was getting kind of, you know, hey, wait a second. I think I got myself into some trouble here. And so we went around the bar and we went down the steps. Now, when we went down the steps, it was interesting. They didn't want us to leave. They blocked us off. They would block us. And so we finally got out of there, and we were like, we could breathe. That was the first thing. We were like, oh my God, we can breathe. And we were like, that was so cool. However, oh my God, no, because we can't breathe, we can't see, we don't know what's going on. We're getting blocked going down the stairs. You know, obviously these people wanted us to come, which is really cool. And I never saw the guy to be able to thank, because who knows? Yeah, I'm definitely sure he's a real vampire. Matter of fact, came up to us in a fine dining restaurant, you know, and walked right over to our table and slipped it kind of under a napkin, you know. So from then on there, I moved over to Vegas, and I was still practicing. Actually, yes, I was a blood drinker. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
And it was from the throat. So there was a huge vampire movement. It's underground in Vegas. Nobody knows about it. Okay? Interesting place to go. Plenty of room to breathe. A lot of weird stuff going on in there. But what I noticed, and they also did a documentary on this, and which was fabulous, is that they were partnering up with an individual, okay, a specific individual, because of disease. Okay, this is because of disease, you know, after AIDS came out and everything else. So the people who weren't real vampires would bring in like their scalpel in a baggie, you know, you know, so it's, you know, and they would, you know, have their alcohol, they'd have the whole thing, and they would do it, okay, with their partner, but using instruments to be safe. But
that's the way it's done here.
Okay, so that's the way it's done now.
Yeah.
Okay. However, it was interesting because the real ones were the ones that were lingering in the distance with no partner. They were basically kind of against the back wall, okay? Just there to kind of maybe check out their prey. I have no idea. But these guys are real. Yeah, they are very real. And I know another guy that's very famous. I'm not going to mention his name because he's so full of himself. I'm not going to mention his name, but in LA, he has a huge movement. He's he makes teeth and all this stuff. And they have,
who in history would ever have thought that a dentist could become so powerful?
No,
just the way you said it.
No, I mean he really is really powerful in this movement, and these people are really serious. Now I haven't been to the one in LA, but you said there's a bunch of other ones in other states.
I believe so. I believe the idea was to sort of plant out, since the 1990s they've been looking for different groups, even in different countries. But I was under the impression there was a network in America, probably 20 plus different groups in different states, maybe, that they have sort of planted out and increased in size. It's all part of the general occult explosion, because obviously the whole, the witchcraft, the goth, the vampire, they're all overlapping now in ways that when they all started out was impossible. But now with things like the internet, etc., things are all overlapping. And the movies are just reflecting that, what we're seeing, and documentaries, they're just reflecting that merger. I don't think, though, in history that vampires have ever been regarded as the good guys. I think they're always like you say, dark, powerful, right, in the background, brooding, secretive, if not invisible. It's kind of, that's where they're at, and that's where they like to be. And it kind of suits that kind of person, that's kind of, that's where they've ended up. But it's the occult side of it that cross over. That's where I think we started the interview with my historical background. What I was telling you about, there's lots and lots of material from old sources that give you the foundation, and that foundation is not just to what they do, it's also to what they believe. It's the foundation to their spiritual practices. So there is the darker occult side of it as well. I mean, when I do the presentation, I don't kind of hide anything. I don't mince my words. I put it all out there. As I said at the very beginning, way back to the early biblical stuff, the Babylonian stuff, the Egyptian stuff, all the stuff we've got has got elements in it that the vampires have pulled together to form their particular belief structure. There are books out there on it now, there's probably the How to Be a Vampire book somewhere, Oh yeah,
no. When I post something about a vampire, I'm always like, they're always saying, well, I'm a vampire. I'm like, well, okay, come on and do an interview. And then I never hear from them again. It's
well, it happened over here. I wanted to get somebody from the guild, to come along and sit on my very nicely decorated couch here, and join us for the evening, and and probably not cast a shadow like I do, because Nosferatu doesn't cast a shadow, of course, So I wanted him to come and sit on here with me, but again, they declined. Or actually didn't even return me messages in some cases, because they just don't do interviews. It's not their thing.
No.
But that's what they are. They're creatures of the night. They're creatures of the shadows. They live in darkness. It's actually quite refreshing to think that there's a massive group of people out there that really don't want to be known. They don't want to come out and make a big deal about it and blow trumpets and bang drums and stuff,
No, they won't. And I agree with you about the occult movement. And so, it's so big now. And I know about Lilith. I do follow a couple of that stuff on there. But, it's just they've just kind of migrated the vampires into, like, Satanism. So
Yes.
I don't really like that because it projects that they are Satanists, which I wasn't a Satanist when I did it. Okay,
Well,
so
my origins were in Satanism. So I'm actually coming from the other side of things. Admittedly, I packed it in before I reached 16. I stopped before my 16th birthday. But right through my teenage years, I was, Mr. Dark and evil and brooding, and I read everything I could get my hands on. And if I'd have kept going, I'm absolutely positive I'd have been into the adult forms of Satanism very, very quickly. And that would have, probably really helped my music career. I'd have done fabulous, That would have really sort of got things going there, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I just, between the ages of sort of 16 and 17, I just gave it up. Because somebody pointed out, they said, well, if you believe in the devil, you believe in Satan, you believe in all that, you have to believe in a God because you've got no opposition without that. And that's where all the information's coming from. There's 680 references to the devil in the Old Testament and the New Testament. That's where all the source material is. So I thought, I don't want to really stick a label on it. I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to study the whole lot. I don't care what it is or where it's coming from. I'm going to study the whole lot and just try and get back to basics, back to where it all comes from. But you're right. I mean, you're right. There is the darker side, the Luciferian side of the occult. Yeah. That is now pretty much hand in glove with the upper echelons of vampires. It's the same over here. Yeah, there's no escaping it.
It's so ridiculous because on TikTok you see these people that have the teeth, right?
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do. It's just a look. It's because I'm always asking them questions. And then it's just a look for their band or.
Yeah, it's like every single person that has any connection to the church automatically assumes that if you're a goth, then you're a Satanist.
Yes.
So I think I said to you last time I had a chat. When I was doing this TV show, I had a T-shirt made that said "God wears black."
Yeah.
Because how can anybody say that just because you wear black, you happen to follow the devil? Where the hell do they think black comes from? You know what I mean? If God made everything, then, well, it's getting a bit controversial now, but, if God made everything, he made black, but he also made the devil. So, it just depends what level you want to work on, so.
Yeah, exactly. But, yeah, okay, so, because I consider myself a goth. When I got home from my vacation, I just said, you know what, I'm tired of being this interviewer that's like, professional and, sits there and sits straight up and wears a certain outfits and this and that. I said, as soon as I get home, I'm shaving my head and I'm getting a nose ring.
And your CNN suit you hung up in the wardrobe, didn't you?
And I'm just going to be doing what I'm doing. I'm going to do what I want to do, okay?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that when people see me, when I go in and I'm dressed like this, okay, for the paranormal, and I go in, Crystal and I go into people's homes to help them get rid of these things, and we don't use equipment or anything else. I always dress my goth. They're never surprised.
No.
They're never surprised or anything like that. I definitely am not into, let's say, worshiping the devil. But however, I must tell you that a lot of people out there are going to be saying shit about you and I just talking about this, saying that we're evil and we're demons. Yeah. And they quote, stuff out of the Bible to me.
Yeah, that annoys me because I'm just going through it now for the 14th time. And I've also read a lot of the other stuff as well, like the Apocrypha, the Nag Hammadi Library, the Dead Sea Scrolls. I mean, biblical stuff is what I'm doing. So just to completely break the mold, next year at some point I'm hoping to finish a biblical book. Because that's the great thing, because they can come up to me and they can go, oh, you worship Satan and you bite the heads off bats and do all that sort of stuff, which is what Ozzy Osbourne did, Then you come and say all that. At the end of the day, I'm a flipping reverend, you know what I mean? I did 3 years at Bible college. I can set up a church. I'm qualified. I've got the certificates on the wall,
Yeah,
so it's absolutely ridiculous.
I also have that, and, stupid-ass paranormal people out there with their equipment. Are they certified? by somebody who is very well known, and no, I am.
Who knows?
I
Yeah,
am.
well,
That's,
so
the,
am I.
that's the first
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
I did was
Yeah.
go in and get certified. You know, when I say that, they don't even have anything to say about it. But
It's like if I stick my preacher man coat on and off I go, I look
Yeah.
like the guy out of the Matrix. But it's black. Do you know what I mean? I mean, that's what the coats are. They're black. So let people run. You know what I mean? Where do they think Gothic comes from? You know, it's all Christian iconography and ruined churches and cemeteries and, you know, for goodness sake, we invented Gothic. That's where it came from, you know.
I mean, if I had it my way years ago, okay, if I had it my way, I would have more rings. I'm going to be getting a tooth thing going on one of my teeth that I'm going to do. They have these new crystals that you can put on your teeth that look like diamonds. And so I'm going to be doing that next. Yeah, guys, I'm going weird. So get used to it. I'm going weird. But you know, I just want to jump in really and just say one last thing, because I mean, I think we covered a lot of. I'm going to go back to that documentary that we were discussing, and it was quite interesting because the vampire, okay, if that's what you want to call him, he wasn't really a real vampire, okay, but his partner, okay, when he sliced her, okay, and it was weird. It wasn't on the neck, it was on the back, and she sat on a chair, and they showed the whole thing. Now, the guy who was interviewing them, he was freaking out. I swear to God, you should have seen his face. He cut a small cut in her, and they showed it, and he fed upon her. Now, it was really interesting because they both got off on doing it. It changed something in their body to where they got a high, like a drug. It was like a drug that they needed to do. The host and him both got something different out of it, which I thought was, wow, what a trip. Well, that's kind of, I guess, if I was looking back at what I did, I thought, well, that definitely was part of it, you know.
Well, I mean, you could write an entire book just on that one thing, you know, the idea that they're feeding off each other's lifeblood and each other's bodily fluids, and it's not a natural form of exchange of fluid like that. You know, I mean, I'm not even, yes, women occasionally, you know, once a month do actually get rid of a great quantity of blood, but there are people who actually drink and consume that rather than damage the partner. So, you know, there's so many complexities within what happens in vampirism that there's an entire book just on the feeding topic alone. You know, dominance and submissives, pain, self-abuse. You know, it goes right across a huge spectrum of issues.
I'm gonna bring something up. They're now doing this. Okay, I'm going to talk about a conspiracy theory really quick. Okay, actually, they take these children in. I'm not going to mention what it is or who it is or whatever. You know, they basically abduct them. Okay. I'm
aware of this.
Okay, they scared them to produce a particular thing that goes in your blood. What is that, Mark? What's the name of that? It's
adrenochrome.
Okay,
so I think it's adrenochrome that you're referring to.
Kill them, take their blood, and consume.
Yeah, the body produces a lot of different chemicals and different formula at the point of fear. I think, going back to Bram Stoker and people back in the Victorian era, I think that's when they were discovering that is what happens. It's part of fight and flight, and it almost makes the person that's experiencing it go superhuman because it's one of the survival instincts. But obviously, if you do that in someone who's young and, you know, not stuffed full of nicotine and all the other things that older people are, you know, it's going to give you a very pure form of that, and that's what seems to be. If you believe what's going around at the moment, that's what seems to be happening.
Well, they're doing it to stay young. And it's quite interesting when you kind of see before and afters, or you see years go by. However, now scientifically, okay, they are doing this. Well, they're not. They're not taking the kids and they're killing them and doing these rituals that are very, let's just say, satanic. Okay. They're taking the blood out of children and they're replacing it into humans. They're actually scientifically doing that now. Now, am I incorrect on that?
No, you're not incorrect. It falls. I got to a point with Lost Treasures where we did the very last episode, and we were looking at body works, which is where people leave their bodies to science, and then those bodies are encased in resins and put on display. But dismantled in various different forms. Things like that. I got to the point in the program where I say, just because we can do something doesn't mean we should do something. Because we can do it doesn't mean we should do it. And I think that's where we're at. Yes, the adrenochrome thing and what's happening. Yes, we know what effects it has. Yes, we know, it's possible. There's so many things like that we as humans can discover and that we can do. But nobody seems to stop to ask that crucial question, should we be doing it? That used to be like a moral stopping point, you know what I mean?
Well, it's growing, and now they're doing this thing, Mark, called vampire facials. They take your blood, okay, and they use this, spinning device or whatever to do with your blood, and then they go in and it's got like little holes, and they punch it in and they punch it in all over your face, and you look like a, you look like Hellraiser. Okay. When you do it, and I saw some before and afters, and it was when I saw her. This is a personal experience, because I know her. I was like, "Holy shit, what have you been doing?" And she goes, "I've been doing that," and I was like, "Well, I want the name of this person." Well, she was doing it in a non-professional way to where, obviously she didn't have a license or anything like that. But they do it at, plastic surgeons' offices or places that you can go, and it's called the vampire facial. Do I believe that it works? Absolutely not.
As a rule, things only seem to work temporarily.
That's exactly what it is. You have to continue to do it.
Yeah, that's what Elizabeth Bathory found when she was sacrificing virgins and bathing in the blood. It makes you look young for a few days, and then you've got to go and find some more virgins, So 500 years ago, she kind of found out the hard way that, there isn't really any way of doing that. The only way to stay young, really, is to follow some of perhaps the Buddhist and the Chinese way of doing things, with the antioxidant teas that they produce, the various diets that they have. It's nearly always about what you don't put into your body that makes the body last longer. It's bizarre. Yeah. It's what you don't do that actually, that tends to work. Yeah. I mean, I've not done anything. I look fantastic for someone who's 350.
I just love you, Mark. I mean, this has been such a great show. I mean, we've really talked about a lot, and I think people are really going to get a really good idea about this. And so the title is going to definitely change to get their attention. But I just you just a wealth of information. I know that your new book is coming out. I don't know if you can say anything about it yet or not. Is that
okay? I'll give it a shameless plug, and you can have the exclusive on it. Okay, here it
comes. Yeah, I know. I already have the exclusive. You're already booked.
I mentioned it very briefly at the beginning. I said we're working on the King Arthur book, this Polychronicon. That's the key. Look out for the word Polychronicon, because nobody else has that. It's the Polychronicon of Merlin, Joseph, and Arthur. So those names tell you what it's all about. It's the complete entire history of those characters, right from the beginning with Merlin and the Druids, right the way through to how Arthur has ended up becoming what he is, basically, this kind of international superhero. It's not a small book. I mean, it's over 400 pages, but it's, usual style for me. It's illustrated, there's loads of photographs in it and what have you, and we are only missing the front cover.
I know, I was just going to ask you, do you have the cover yet? I know, I keep asking, so you still don't have it, and it's been 3 weeks?
No, it usually takes a couple of months to design a decent cover. We're doing it a bit like a sort of movie poster, with the three main, Merlin, Joseph and Arthur as the main characters. And you sort of look up at them, and it looks a bit like a sort of a Marvel comic superhero type poster. That's what we're aiming for.
Okay.
Because nobody's ever really done a cover like that before. So it's been done by a proper artist. He's brilliant, absolutely amazing guy doing it.
Okay. It's not your publisher who's doing the cover, right?
Oh hell no!
Oh, thank God!
No!
Thank God!
Don't give Philip a bad name. It's nothing to do with him. It's me and the artist having this ding dong about what we want on the front cover.
Right.
Holy Grail has to glow a bit more, and this guy's hair has to be, brown, not white, and things like that. It's just that. As soon as we've got it, literally the day we get that finished cover, the book can go on sale. So we're aiming to try and get it out for Christmas. So you'll have the digital version, the download and all that. We're probably not going to do an audio book because it'll send you to sleep. It's too long. But certainly the printed version is going to be absolutely amazing. Hardback and softback, it'll be brilliant. Not quite sure about the price yet. It's probably going to come in somewhere heading towards the upper teens. It might be kind of 16, 17, 18 quid or something.
Right.
But the size of it is 174,000 words, so it's quite a big thing, but it's got everything. If there's anybody out there that's thinking, I want to know about the real King Arthur, I want the truth, I want, real places, real names, real time scale, I want the genuine source material, not stuff that's been made up, this is most definitely the book for you. It's already got loads of really good reviews, but that's the first time I've advertised it anywhere, so you've got the first advert, and we're aiming it to be out by Christmas. So
I think we're scheduled long enough out to where the cover will be done, and it will be done.
Oh yeah, I mean, if it's not done by December, I'll eat my shorts. You know what I mean? It's got to be done by then.
I don't think you can eat my shorts, but okay.
If it's not done by December, I'll have nothing to sell off my sleigh, will I?
No,
what are the reindeer going to read over Christmas?
I told you should be Santa Claus and making some extra money on the side. So anyways, I just want to tell everybody out there, it's Mark Ollie, huge in the UK. Coming soon. We cannot say a word about what he's doing. You never can because I've done TV about, what he's going to be doing. But it's pretty big stuff, guys. Okay. So we're really looking forward to some more interviews with Mark. He's a wonderful person, and I just love him to death. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and speaking about this, because people need to know this information in the vampire industry. It's very important. So it's cool. So it's going to be funny when we get the people that are just want to see vampires and hear about blood sucking and they're going to just turn it off. They're not going to be interested. But I think that the true ones out there that are really want to know it are going to be fascinated by this.
Well, there's loads of pointers in the interview. We've given away enough information historically, physically, practically. You should be able to watch the interview and come out at the end of it knowing exactly where you stand and where you want to go with this as an issue. Which is the point of doing it, really. To get people informed.
Yeah, exactly. So, I thank you so much. I'm looking forward to you coming on again. And I just want to say, everybody out there, I hope you got something out of this. I know you did. Okay, there's going to be a lot of people that did. I have. So I just want to thank everyone out there and say thank you once again, Mark. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
That is going to be the end of our show for today. Wow.